Hello, and good morning, everybody. I'm your host, Keenan. Welcome to the August 4th, 2022 weekly DXdao community call. Hopefully everyone's glad to see me. I had some time last week running around the French Riviera, very, very beautiful place. Had not been to France before, so it's good to kind of, I guess, to put it lightly, collect some heat stroke along the way for those of you that were on the call here before the recording started. Of course, everyone's here in the Discord today. Reasoning for this, a second Discord call. I think last week we tried Discord, maybe did some Jitsi. Surprise, surprise, we're tentatively aiming for next Thursday for the inaugural episode of DXdao's decentralized focus podcast, Operation Decentralization. So keep an eye out for that. As soon as we have the guest and date confirmed, we'll have an announcement post that you can find here in the Discord under DXdao announcements. So a little more on that coming. Today we're chatting a little bit about DXdao offloading a Pudgy Penguins Rod, the state of buybacks for the DXD token, a discussion on the DXD token working group forum posts, some Swapr product and farming updates to the inaugural Infinite Hackathon, and a recap of some of the ETHCC events by yours truly. Before we get started, for those of you that don't know, you can always find these calls in the events tab at the top of the server. Have been making a point of keeping those regularly updated. So keep an eye into that, opt into those calls ahead of time. As someone attending today, maybe you're going to want to attend next week. So you'll get a nice little ping. You'll be kept up to date with our call schedule. Excellent. Before anything, let's hop into the agenda. Let's kick it off with some recaps, starting with governance. I think maybe Chris and or Dave, I'm not sure who the best person to talk about this is. Maybe Chris?
Yeah, I'm looking at Dave is not up on stage, but in the audience. But yeah, so governance over the last 2 weeks. Yeah, Dave actually hosted the governance discussion last week, and I did the one yesterday. Last week, in terms of governance, there's been a lot of different rep syncs over the last couple weeks on mainnet as gas has come down. There's also a bunch of items that I think we'll get to later, like the Pudgy Rod NFT. Some of the discussion last week was also on the DAI in DXdao's treasury, which I believe is still there, but will soon not be there in, I think, a couple days, assuming that proposal passes there about offloading the rest of the RAI because of the negative redemption rate there. And then lots of different stipend proposals, lots of things kind of coming through for both Paris and Bogota, kind of caught in between those, coming after Paris and then people preparing for Bogota there. And then, yesterday, we're updating a DXstats.eth content hash. So this is some big updates to the DXstats, which is great. And then a bunch of contributor proposals live on Gnosis chain. And then we talked briefly about a post I made in the forum about delegating DXdao's ENS tokens to KD Fork. This would be like an exploration of seeing how DXdao could become more active in ENS governance. And so there was some discussion in the forum and on the call there. And then there was also discussion on Level K worker proposal and payout for September 21 and October 2021. And then a lot of the other stuff that we chatted about with governance are going to be, I think, items probably on the rest of the call. So I will maybe hold off on anything else there.
Excellent. Sounds good. Thank you, Chris. And quickly before moving to Ross or DXgov, I just wanted to quickly mention to anyone less familiar with our community calls that might be here, you can right-click the lo-fi radio to set it to the volume that you wish. I do believe it's a little high by default. It might be drowning us out. So if you can even hear me, of course, right-click that lo-fi radio, set it to what you want, or simply mute it. Excellent. So next up, DXgov with Ross. Would love a little update from your side here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't remember the last thing we gave an update on, but I can't quite remember. So excuse me if I go over some stuff again. The probably most exciting stuff is we just sent off our final audit for guilds. So we had a huge big list of fixes to do. They're all done and have been sent away. So I think we hopefully should be hearing back about that in the next few weeks, and we'll have an update for you when we do. That's basically the last, one of the major blocks before we can go ahead with actually launching in production with, of course, everyone's looking forward to Swapr governance And in that meantime, we're just continuing with some QA processes and trying to smooth out the application a bit. On a more technical level, I think we're going to have a feature freeze in a couple of weeks. We've just got a couple of last major features to get in that we want to squeeze in before production. They're quite exciting as well. A bit of a partnership with Orbis, so some exciting stuff coming there. We'll freeze that, get all the features ironed out, ready for production, and yeah, we're on our way. And like slightly longer term stuff, we've got another audit planned for September. We'll get some more updates on that later on, but fair to say it kind of lays some more stepping stones for Governance 2.0, and hopefully you'll be seeing some more posts about that soon as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ross, for heading here on stage. Some fun stuff happening at DXgov. Super exciting. Moving on here to our next topic, we have a bit of a fun one. Offloading a Pudgy Penguins Rod. There's an interesting situation with some ENS misdelegation, or not delegation, sorry. Thinking about Chris's delegation post. Missending of an asset through ENS. So we have received a Pudgy Penguins Rod in the DXdao treasury, and basically looking to return it to the rightful owner using some older schemes. John, maybe you did give a good update on the governance call. It would be interesting to kind of give a quick recap on this.
Yeah, I'll address that. I think the legwork has been done by Dave, who's in the audience here. So, hat tip to him for saving the lost NFT rod here. So yeah, somebody accidentally sent it, I think, mistyping an ENS name, and it ended up in the DXdao treasury. So trying to help that person out by returning it. So as you may know, the mainnet governance and all DXdao governance has schemes, and usually the schemes are scoped to certain responsibilities, and we don't have a dedicated NFT transferring scheme, right? So that's not something that DXdao typically does. However, there is a very flexible scheme. We call it like the generic multi-call with a long consensus period, and like the idea there is that it can do almost anything except for send funds, and this gives the DAO flexibility to interact with different contracts. However, it does require like a 2-week period to pass if it's boosted, right? So this is from like a security perspective that's consistent with the same amount of time that it takes to install a new plugin, which can also has a lot of flexibility in what could happen. So that's how we're doing it, and it's just going to take a little bit of time, but that NFT should find its way home soon.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, John, for stepping in. And just because I think I missed it, the ENS was carrot.eth. The owner of their address had carrot emoji, carrot.eth. Of course, this is kind of maybe a larger discussion on problems with ENS and kind of using all of Unicode. It's interesting to have, mix-ups like this, especially in a world where you're sending assets. Will you take us with you to Bogota? Maybe I need a GoPro. Everyone can follow me around. That's an interesting thing to think about. Cool. Here, moving on to the next topic, buybacks status and future. Was just interested in a bit about the current happenings of the buyback and kind of a bit on the discussions in the forum and the Discord about what is happening in the future. I'm actually less educated on this topic, so we'll be taking this opportunity to catch up a little bit through our speakers. Maybe this is Dave, if not Chris. It would be great to kind of have you speak to what you can.
Sure. I just posted the DXD trade volume update from early August just to kind of set the stage here, and not too much different than what we've seen the last couple of months, just in terms of volumes declining for DXD. And so you can see now it's a average of like $45,000 a day, which if you go back like 6 or 7 months ago, it's like 150,000, right? That's where we were kind of at there. So this is, a drop, but again, I think that's not to be that's to be expected with the overall market. There was some liquidity like taken out actually just after this was posted. So I think that in terms of like on-chain DXD liquidity, there's not as much right now. So as I said, the average the buyback size right now is 11,000. I believe there is one current buyback order now, and there is 59 WETH in the GP relayer that can still be executed. I know buyback orders have kind of slowed down a little bit over the last couple weeks. I think Dave maybe can speak to the specifics of that and how it's doing. But part of that, I think, is just like where the market was and there. But this last 59 WETH can still be used under the previous extension. And then I think the next step is to extend for the last 107 WETH that was in the buyback reserve. And I'm hoping that's something that we can do in the short term. And so just to take a step back, and maybe this is kind of going into the next topic a little bit, but I mean, I think there's kind of like three different timeframes or ways of looking at DXD and the token, and like what governance probably needs to figure out. The first is what I just mentioned, is like there's this buyback extension going to run out, and there's 107 WETH that can also be used for that. So just extending that's the easiest thing, where I think there's like pretty broad consensus on just doing that and moving forward. And then there's like the second and the third one, the medium and the long term. And so the medium term is what happens after that 107 WETH is left out. And then the long term is like, well, what about what is the kind of long-term value for driving value to DXD? How do we kind of like adjust that model? I think when you look holistically at not just DXdao, but other projects in this space, I think a buyback model for driving value to the token is a pretty inefficient way of using capital. Maker is obviously like pretty famous for this. So I think what we're seeing now is like, as the value of DXD went closer like to NAV, the argument for DXdao buying it back kind of goes, I think gets weaker. And so that's kind of what we're dealing with now. And then the question is, okay, if it's not a buyback, right? Because a buyback kind of is maybe not the most efficient form. There's actually some, as John kind of alluded to, I think in the forum or maybe in the Discord, you can have almost like a death spiral where people would continuously redeem DXD for whatever the value of the treasury is. And that means DXdao has to go out and buy DXD with the treasury value there. So I think like the long term is basically coming up with something that is not a buyback model. And so I think right now, I guess in terms of DXD buyback, there's the 59 WETH that's still in there, and there will be orders kind of coming in, and then hopefully we can get 107 an extension for the 107 WETH up, while keeping the conversations on the medium term and the long term there. And the long term there, I guess kind of we can stop here and see if there are questions or comments, or anyone else on stage wants to.
Seeing from Quintillan in the chat agreeing with Chris that longer term DXstat needs to move away from a buyback model. Can't disagree. Anyone here on stage have any thoughts to share?
There was an interesting proposal, I guess, or idea at least by Connor, who I think is maybe in here in the audience. Even maybe get him on stage if he wants, but he made the post in DAO Talk about how an alternative approach would be to kind of issue some rewards to DXD holders that stake. So I think the cool things about this from my perspective was that it could result in a nice predictable obligation for the treasury, and that it could perhaps favor the long-term holders, the people that are really aligned with the building and the mission behind that. But it looks like we have him here, so let him talk to that.
Sounds like he can't talk. He's in a library. I invited him up. Maybe he was accidentally accepted.
Oh, okay.
I do like that idea, definitely as well. One of the things I've actually been considering is something similar to that. And I also like the idea of lock weighting, similar to a bribe system, paying attention to kind of the Velodrome VE33 kind of model. But the basics of that being, show you're committed through a longer time, because time is money. Though you're committed through a larger time to get a larger weighting of like whatever the reward is, be it staking, be it ETH, be it more DXD, whatever that may be. So I've been thinking about that for sure. And I think there's a lot of directions to take that. And I guess let me see here on the agenda. Where are we? I guess the next topic is the DXD token working group discussions that have been happening in the forum. So I guess that's kind of what this has evolved into. But Chris, if you want to kind of talk a bit about that forum post and kind of that discussion, maybe a bit on the for and opposing sides, just for context for the listeners here.
Yeah, and I just seen Spicy Soup's comments here. We've already agreed that buying back while NAV is below 70% and reserve is depleted. I think we have like tools for the short and medium and long term. Like we kind of understand what those issues are, and we have some boundaries on them. And I think with the like short term, as I said, like the boundaries are pretty clear. I think on the medium term, we need to like find some additional like consensus on what those boundaries are. But I definitely think like those boundaries, part of it is from the previous proposal. Part of it is like kind of market conditions. Part of it is what is going to happen in the future. Part of it is just like how the discussion goes. So I think we need to solve that too. And so I think there should be something in the medium term there. And then like the long term, it's kind of the same thing where there are a lot of discussions about what could be a new model for DXD. I think what Connor said is interesting. I think there's a lot of there's a lot of different potential out there. And I think having a dedicated token working group to gather these different opinions and be able to like create a specific space for that, I think would be a really good thing for DXdao governance to do. Just because, we have these calls and we have these different things where we're talking, but really carving out specific space for that, I think would be really, really good, and devoting some of governance time, mostly my time, to that. I think it would be a very, very a good move in that direction. But regardless of whether it's like a DXD token working group or something, like there needs to be some way that governance is deciding on a new token model for DXD. And I think that process needs to happen not just in just over the next few months in order to be able to give more confidence to DXD holders. And so I think, figuring out how we can have that long-term model, I think is very important.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Chris. Anyone else here in the chat or stage, feel free to pipe in with any thoughts on that topic. Otherwise, we'll sneak ahead to the next to seeing Nathan joining us on stage.
Yeah, hi guys. I just wanted to say to Spicy Soup's comment that in the short term we can proceed as stipulated in the latest signal proposal for continuing the buyback to aim at 70% of NAV, but we should also be proceeding with caution, as John warned us in one of his comments on DAO Talk, and then Connor came up with a good solution, because basically the problem we're facing at hand is if we just continue blindly aiming at 70% of NAV, then the circulating supply will keep decreasing while the NAV increases, and eventually we're in this vicious cycle that we're just draining the treasury. So we should come up with an update to the signal proposal and stipulate some parameters, and Connor terms it like supply for the purpose of buybacking. Short term we can proceed as we've agreed. There's no dispute on that, but not even long term, but even midterm, we should be coming with some updates.
Hola. About DXD, it will be also great to start exploring other use cases, like, for example, on Governance 2.0, that we are going to be using it for governance staking, where it adds a use case for our governance token, right? That will be DXD. It will be great to add more use cases over it, maybe explore other applications or solutions, or how we can integrate it in our stack to increase the appreciation of it. This is think would be the ideal solution. Maybe something that we can also start exploring in the DXC token working group.
Yeah, I completely agree with that stance. I think I've brought this up in a couple product strategy calls, maybe a while ago, and definitely to Chris individually some time ago. But I think, I guess, really the bare bones is something to do with the DXD token. Be that even just like a soft staking thing, some reason to have DXD and use it. That can be governance locking, that can be, staking. As long as there's something to do with DXD, I think it's an improvement over the current model. I think that we kind of already have an idea in mind, and maybe it's just automating and executing upon it, as I think John might have mentioned. But lots of considerations, and looking forward to the discussion of and formalization of a working group.
Yeah, I guess I'll take it is my kind of contrarian view on the working group. Is what I hope we can avoid is just appearing as if we're just talking more instead of focusing on the delivery. So I think if the DXD holders express that they see value in the working group, that can be a good thing. But I just hope that the DXD holders see us as, and that we actually are focusing on the most important things and the most pressing things in their mind. And I think those other things could be Gov 2.0 itself, and how are the products driving value, because ultimately that's the number one thing in terms of DXD having value.
Yeah, one of the things is that now I have still thinking on it. We are still using Gen, for example, Gen token, and it's that's the only value that it has, right? That we are using for our governance. So here there is something that we need that other DAOs might need when they start using our stack, and we have a potential very good use case here. We can get our token, integrate other DAOs framework, and maybe other DeFi applications. So it would be great to have a native token mechanism or way of working where we know that there's going to be this native use case, but also explore other ones, because eventually this is where it's going to give our token why do you need it? Why are you using it? Why are you holding it? So this is the thing that we should start exploring, and the conversations and discussions need to start somewhere. And maybe a token working group is the best solution that we have, or the best place that we have right now. Really, there is only one way to know. So I agree that we should execute it, but it would be great, again, like I mentioned on the call, to have some validation from DXD holders, some voice on it, on chain.
I just quickly wrote out a response to Spicy Soup. He says, agreed with John. I'm slightly concerned it'll be a time sink. We'll be discussing some things that were back when Delphi were pitching ideas back in the day. I just want to quickly respond to that. I think on the other hand, I broadly agree with the notion that, there's the shipping over talking. You don't want to necessarily focus too much on talking and getting stuck in that loop. But I do think, however, that thinking about this and kind of propagating opinions more widely than just a, individual, he said, she said, having this group of people, including all kind of stakeholders that can reach a consensus, is important here, because the token is pretty much the second most important facet of DXdao, right behind the treasury, and of course is tightly correlated to the treasury in some capacity. For example, the current model or idea of a death spiral, right, and avoiding that's an important, protection of the treasury. So I think of course, maybe I've shown my neutrality leg a little too much as of late, but I think that there is value in this case in the working group, and I would personally support it.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, so I just want to add another small comment, but we are in a bear market, right? Sort of, whatever that means, but trying to make trying to control the price of a token or trying to bring it up, or all these buyback things, I don't think they're going to be doing very well in a bear market. And I think our focus should be on creating actual utility and actual value to the DXD token, and yeah, big agreeer to like a DXD token working group. And I think we do have a few paths that are going to converge in the future. I think like the governance using our own token, I think is a brilliant way to at least start it, and yeah, like the DXD could come into places in many different many different things inside the entire what's called DXdao ecosystem, and that's what we should focus on. I don't know, short-term prices shouldn't matter. That's kind of the bottom line.
And on the topic of revenue generation, I would say we have some hidden gems. I would never discount our products. They have tremendous potential. The governance team, the products that the governance team is building, and also Carrot. Little do people know, but we have partner organizations that we're liaising with that are using Carrot, and they are the ones demanding that we use Carrot, and all we need is to turn on the fees. So this is a product that is a potential great revenue generator for DXdao.
I just said Nathan finding every opportunity to shill DXdao products. The resident shill master here. Yeah, but good discussions. I think there's a lot to digest, a lot of different opinions. So I think this should definitely live in the form, maybe some kind of vote for sure. But exciting to have the conversations, and I think I've been kind of loosely referring to focusing on, how can we evolve the DXD token model for some time. Maybe haven't necessarily taken the initiative, but I think that this is kind of what that is. So glad to see discussions happening. Wherever they end up is where they end up. Cool. Let's chat Swapr updates, DXstats, the 1.6.0, and new farms. I think we have Adam here, although the stage may be full. It looks pretty crowded right now. I don't know if there's a cap to that. I think we have Adam here. No, we're good.
Here. No, we're
you can't leave us, Chris.
No, it's comfortable.
Welcome, Ad. Oh, he didn't join. Am I going crazy?
I do not see him. I see Lo-Fi. His hand is up.
Our favorite speaker.
There he is. Adam.
All right. What do you guys want, Swapr or DXstats first?
What do you guys want? Let's start with Swapr, just a little bit of what you guys have going on, and then a little bit of an update on DXstats 1.6 would be good. I'll kind of follow that with info on the new farm starting today.
Perfect. So on Swapr, we are still trying to get beta release fixed. I mean, like, we have the release planned, and we have like a few features. For example, the 0x protocol integration into Ecorouter, and then also we're going to move away from Arbitrum Rinkabai and then switch that to Goerli. Also, we have like a backlog of bugs we're trying to fix. We're trying to update a lot of our core packages from Ether.js and then Web3 React and everything else. And then maybe on DXstats, and I'm just gonna quote Venki, who gave me the gist of it. So basically, a lot of performance gains on the DXstats. It's also live on the mainnet base. So there is a proposal to update this, which is going to include like performance gains, some updates to the cards, and then slightly a newer design. But also that's everything from DXstats. So nothing major until probably in the next releases. Now I can't, I guess. Okay, I'm good.
You hear me now?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and then I guess kind of caught up here. did you mention DXstats? Sorry, I think I might have cut out as you may have mentioned.
Oh, I mentioned like so the proposal live is gonna pass in 2 days and I believe 15 hours. So this is going to have like performance gains, slightly new design, and that's everything.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, sorry on that. I don't know. I think my internet's cut out twice today already for some reason. So apologies for that. And I guess the next thing then is the new farms. If we want to quickly chat about those, for those of you that are not aware, although I'm sure most of you are. Thursdays on the time of our community call is when Swapr farms launch. So the latest farms have launched as of, I guess, 37 minutes ago at 1500 UTC. On Arbitrum, this includes Swapr ETH, UCC ETH, ETH Wrap Bitcoin, DXd ETH, Curve ETH, and Badger ETH. There were a couple of reductions for underperforming pairs. So we're doing that on Arbitrum. And then on the Gnosis side of things, for those of you that are Gnosis farmers, do not fret. The latest round of farming has not yet hit Swapr. Reasoning is a couple of logistical issues. That's expected within the next hour or two, as indicated on the Swapr Twitter. So keep an eye there. Keep an eye on the announcement channel below if you're a Gnosis Chain farmer. You can find a little bit more info, hopefully in the next hour or two, to migrate those farms. But on that kind of topic, the only big change to Gnosis Chain is a key, I guess QI, key is the word, I think. Key WETH pool or Key GNO or both, just cementing that with our partners, and that will be popping up alongside this round. So only major change here on Gnosis Chain. Keep an eye out very shortly for that deployment. More info on that soon. Loving this lo-fi tune here. Cool. Next topic here, Infinite Hackathon and Devcon. I think we had Mar or MAR. I'm not sure the preferred way to spell your name. But we had some questions about Devcon, kind of what will be going on. So let's kick it off with Augusto. It'd be good to hear your voice and kind of a bit of an update on the current state of Infinite Hackathons, DXdao's native and decentralized hackathon effort.
Hola, yes. Well, we had the website up and running, sharing the Infinite Hackathon for weeks now. So we are still open on registrations, looking for more co-organizers, and any co-organizer lead or how you can spread the word about the hackathon is welcome to be shared. So really, that's all that have been happening. We have been talking mostly with co-organizers and finalizing some venue details, talking with our organizers in Bogota, making sure that we are going to have everything ready and everything ready on the facilities and internet connections. It's going to be good enough. That the food is going to be good. So we are already starting like exploring the menus that we are going to offer to hackers. And yeah, mostly all that. Looking for more co-organizers. And regarding Devcon, I think most of our contributors have been accepted with builder discounts. I personally was accepted. I already bought my ticket. I think most of the DXdao contributors are going to have a ticket, and there are still a few. I think there is another round of public ticker sales that is going to open soon. So looking good there. The stat news is that we got all our technical talks rejected, the ones that we submitted. So we expect to see very good technical content on Devcon, and the only one who was accepted was Melanie. That I think she was accepted on a panel that is going to be talking about contributor UX. Maybe Melanie wants to tell us more about it, but yeah, she's going to be our leader there, like the only one with the speaker badge. So I think that's all so far we have there.
Our VIP, inviting Melanie here to the stage with just a little bit more on Infinite before pivoting the discussion to Devcon. as a quick update. Lots of exciting things to come. Of course, we have in the chat here the current landing page as well as the Discord. If you have not yet joined, you want to join. Before we kind of cement all of our co-organizers, we were handing out a what's the name? I think it's early roll, Genesis roll. So a fun little roll for those of you that are early. You're going to want to join the Infinite channels, and you're going to start hearing a lot about Infinite over these coming weeks. So get your foot in the door now if you haven't already. There's going to be a new landing page with a lot more info that is a little bit more comprehensive coming out soon as well. So pay attention. If you're interested in attending, please sign up. You can find so on infinite-hackathons.eth.limo. Or if you're a part of an organization or know anyone that's a part of an organization that might be interested in co-organizing, feel free to reach out to us. Cool. Then let's chat a bit about Devcon here. Augusto, you kind of kicked off that discussion, but I kind of want to highlight, what Devcon is and those that have participated before, how the experience has been and what you expect to take from the event. So maybe this is Sky, if you want to kick it off as the events master, kind of what Devcon is, and then we can transition into, discussing previous experiences.
Sure, thanks. And hopefully this update is good for Mar. Devcon is the main event that Ethereum Foundation puts on. It hasn't happened for the last 2 years because of COVID. It's been getting delayed. They usually announce it after the previous hackathon, but a lot of people were pushing for this one to be in Buenos Aires or in Argentina. It ended up choosing Bogota in Colombia. The venue, if you check out the venue, the Agora space in Bogota, you'll see a very impressive modern building that looks like a really cool, amazing space. I think that's one of the big reasons that they actually chose this city. There should be thousands of people there attending. They've made the process of acquiring tickets either through applying or through the open sales or through a general support program by organizations in the space. It seems a little late, like this is happening in a couple months and still people don't know for sure if they're going or have tickets. It's all kind of coming together right now. That's probably part of the issue with people not knowing that they're going to be there, when they're going to be there, maybe not applying for our hackathon just yet. But the actual Devcon event is, the main days of that is October 11th to the 14th, which is Tuesday to Friday. But then there's a Devcon week that is around that, as we've seen with many of the events in the Ethereum space. These events turn into weeks or even more than weeks. And so what that week looks like is DXdao's Infinite Hackathon that weekend. There is also a competing hackathon. On that Monday, October 10th, is a couple different events, ETH Latam at Bogota, and then also Shelling Point. There's a Shelling Point event by Gitcoin that's taking place on the 10th as well. And then that leads into Devcon event, which is 11th to the 14th, which will be full of speakers, meetings. In this venue, there'll just be everyone hanging around, attending and meeting and chatting and things. There's not necessarily like hacking and work being done, but there's lots of different tracks. I think there's like 11 or 12 different tracks, depending on what you're interested in, that you can follow those tracks of, and that's how the speakers and events or talks and workshops are organized. And then following Devcon actual event I believe in the same space, there's a community co-working space for that following weekend in the same venue. So maybe people will hang around and it will kind of feel like the vibe of the event that took place or that space that happened in Amsterdam. And so overall, and then this is all just like the actual programming of blockchain or of Ethereum events and hackathons and things. And then as we see, there will be likely lots of different organizations that are organizing outside events. And so that those can be parties, happy hours, their own hangout working places. I don't know where those will be around the city, but hopefully, it won't be hard to get around. But you'll start to see a schedule fill up, and I'm sure you'll start to see other entities in the space like add events onto the schedule as well. And eventually, this rather tight, small schedule that exists today will probably expand to there's too many events happening all at the same time, and you have to decide what to go to and what not to go to. But overall, I think people are very excited for Devcon in Bogota because it hasn't happened in a long time. Though there is some, not concern, but in Paris, for example, we were talking to, of the people in the space that I was kind of thinking would go to Devcon, there are a handful of people that are maybe traveled out or maybe don't want to go down to South America that may not be going. So it's not like a no-brainer that everyone in the space is going to show up to attend this week. But I think it will still be a really amazing crowd. But there are, there's a lot going on like in September leading up to it and then following it as well. And so some people I've heard just aren't planning to attend. They may FOMO in at the end like Nylon does, but overall I think we'll still have a really great crowd there. And then I guess the last point is there'll be a whole bunch of DXdao contributors. It will be a great time to actually get together and discuss some of the hard topics in DXdao. That we're planning to do a retreat following that, and that would be a great time to like meet and work and get down and dirty all together in person and come up with like strategy around all of the open topics that we're discussing, on a regular basis. Being a chance to do that in person is always a great way to make progress on outstanding issues. So that's the overall summary. If anyone wants to add anything, feel free.
I want to add something. Just want to say that it's great that we are seeing Devcon happening in Latin America, and what you can expect of coming to Devcon will be to get in touch with a Latin America community that is embracing cryptocurrency by necessity, that is embracing cryptocurrency just they want to be independent from the system, from a political and economic system that, again, it was historically always very tough in South America. So you are going to, if this is at least why I expect by going there, to see Latin American people being telling me their experience, how they are embracing crypto, how they are using cryptocurrency by what it was built for, right? What it was built for and what it was designed for by Satoshi Nakamoto, right? Here our main intention is to increase our treasury and make money, but it will be great. At least this is what I expect to see this Satoshi Nakamoto vision happening with real people, real use cases, meeting them. I've been seeing this in Argentina, where, for example, we have football teams and national teams having cryptocurrency sponsors, and you all know how important football, for example, is in South America. So I guess that give you a vision of what you are going to see if you come. First of all, you're going to have a lot of fun because Colombia is great, good food, good people. But again, this is what I expect to see, and this is why I'm very excited to go. I want to see again this Satoshi Nakamoto vision, where we want to free ourselves from political and economic system. This is why we are embracing cryptocurrency in Latin America, besides making money on Ethereum. So it will be great to see more content about that on Devcon, and I really hope that we are going to see more about that.
Augusto is incredibly inspiring. I feel the need to salute a flag or something whenever he does his rallying speeches. Thank you very much for piping in, Augusto. I guess only other thing is anyone else that might have been to DevCon before. I think we have John, I believe Dave, but anyone else that wants to kind of pipe into what DevCon is like and what the value kind of has been, feel free to do so.
Well, I met Augusto at DevCon, so you can ascribe whatever value to that you may. And it's the main event, right? Like this is the Ethereum homecoming. It's the community get together. It's super technically focused. And the talks are like the highest quality. You get a great snapshot of what people are working on across the space and kind of connect with all of the major projects and people, and it's super exhausting, but I think it's great because that's the best chance you'll have to connect with the most people. I think as the space has gotten bigger, it becomes a little bit overwhelming, but it still adds a lot of value. And I think Melody, did you talk to the workshop yet?
Oh no, I didn't have a chance to talk about it.
Melody's carrying us by actually getting something accepted, unlike the rest of us blokes. So yeah, you should talk about what that is.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so this is my DevCon, and I'm really looking forward to it, not only as my first time experience, but also because I will be a speaker at the conference. I will be leading a workshop all about the contributor experience. And the title of the workshop is Building the Builders, How You Can Create the Next Generation of Web3 Contributors Through Education, Peer Review, and Professional Development. Unfortunately, I didn't have a really clever name of the workshop, but it's still got accepted. And this will be on the governance and coordination track. I know Sky mentioned that. So if anyone's kind of following along DevCon, this workshop will be on the governance and coordination track. I will be leading the workshop along contributors from Gitcoin, MakerDAO, and Aragon. And the format of the workshop will start like as an open office session where you can ask us any of your most burning contributor questions, and then we'll move into workstations where you can get one-on-one guidance on specific aspects of Web3 talent building. And I guess the hope of the workshop is just to teach DAOs, other projects, organizations of how to develop successful and resilient Web3 contributors. So if anyone's not at a technical talk or doing something more exciting, would love to have anybody join my workshop. I don't have any specifics on the timing or dates, but I'll definitely keep everyone up to date on that.
Cool. Yeah, thank you everyone for speaking up on the topic here. I think there's a little bit of chat about budget here in the chat. We'll let that kind of propagate over the next minute. And while that's happening, I'd love to talk a bit about the ETHCC Blockchain Week. Let me put my post here in the chat. I had the opportunity to write out a nice thread on kind of the findings, happenings. Sky also had a nice master thread that kind of went through everything. So I try to keep it a little bit more observational. I guess the first thing, and I'll try to paraphrase a bit, it is a long post, but the first thing is kind of field and participants. I think ETH Denver was very important, of course, but mostly focused on kind of selling and relationships to customers and users, while I interpreted ECC to be more akin to ETH Lisbon, which of course the only other event in the last year that I did attend, so it's easy to make comparisons. But there's a lot of like-minded, building-oriented people, discussions and deliberations about important topics, as opposed to feeling like a constant selling, if that's makes any sense. I think B2B versus B2C really is the easiest way to kind of boil down that issue. And I guess on that topic, it's not necessarily news to anyone, especially if you read my Denver thread. But some of the most popular or deepest discussions about DXdao that I had were always about our governance. How we're unique, how we're ahead of the curve, how non-transferable voting power is an incredible tool, and people don't understand why it isn't being used. everyone wanting a piece of the pie and wanting to transition to a system. And it's like, okay, well, how can I use your governance? And that answer is coming, right? So super, super awesome to hear. I still think, in reflection of my Denver post, that governance is one of DXdao's strongest suits, and we should definitely drill a bit deeper into the prioritization of that and potential for GAAS selling our governance and using our models. I guess the next thing is kind of our happy hour. It was, I think, the highlight of the week. It was definitely a more familiar environment, which isn't necessarily always the best place to necessarily, meet new people. But it was DXdao and friends. Lots of interesting people that we're familiar with. Lots that are kind of tagging along for the ride. Lots of new and comfortable relationships made, and lots of opportunities to foster, explore our current relationships as well. So that was excellent. I do have a photo here to put. I don't mean to step on any of this budget-related discussion. We can hop back to that in a minute. Just want to share some photos for those following along this topic here. The next thing is kind of swag. I think the biggest thing for me is how our ever-growing DX Voice Squad has kind of presented its most unique, impressive swag offering to date. We've had several incredible comments. We didn't even have a booth to consider for this. We supported a new swag strategy where instead of focusing on solely the DXdao brand, we have more subtle branding and focus on kind of broad topics, decentralization, etc. So kind of alongside that strategy, we had fans, which really won the heart of the crowd with how terrible the heat was. But basically, we had some very, very high quality fans. I think we had a couple comments on Twitter as well. You might be able to find in the social highlights channel. But lots of good fans going around. And the most interesting part is that we were handing them out, but you would find these fans naturally all over the place, throughout the events and even at the parties before we started handing them out, which is really cool. And I think there was a comment that wrapped it up pretty well. It's like, this is by far the best, highest quality Ethereum swag I've ever got. I think it was a Reddit social token developer that put that tweet out. Anyhow, fans were incredible. I still have mine, and I do use them despite maybe not even having a use for them. They just look too damn pretty. Next thing is shirts. We knocked it really out of the park, particularly our newest member of the team, International Blue, who has come up with some really incredible designs to kind of support that. Let me put a photo of this here. The designs, of course, were so resonating with the people that had the limited run of shirts that we actually have our first DXdao branded ink on one of our contributors, Milan V. So that's super exciting as well. Of course, I think that tattoo looks phenomenal as well. So a little jealousy bleeding through as well. A bit on Swapr. Swapr Squad was in full force. So we kind of had special Swapr shirts for everyone that was working on Swapr. You can see that at various events in our happy hour. There's also a bunch of Swapr marketing posters, some gorgeous stickers flying off the stack. So it was super great to see Swapr getting a lot of value. I kind of spent a lot of that happy hour running around handing out pamphlets as well. And they were disappearing from the spots that I was leaving them just as fast as I could. So no contributors were spotted. Last but not least on the swag side is stickers. It was our most unique sticker. I know sticker is something that isn't necessarily gets everyone incredibly excited, but we did have a very unique line of stickers this time, between holographic glow in the dark and complete prismatic kind of features. I do have a little teaser of what those look like, but these are not what they look like in person. I can assure you, they are the highest quality stickers that I have ever utilized. And then the next thing is Rave. There was this is kind of just a personal thought I shared, is that Rave was very, very misorganized. I was unfortunately not able to attend any previous Rave, be it lack of tickets or flight conflicts that kind of made it so I couldn't make it. But basically it was a super mismanaged line, or rather lack of line. Everyone's piling on, physical pushing, name calling to people that are not necessarily in the line, and it was a mess. Unfortunately, after an hour of waiting, we couldn't get in. It wasn't all bad, of course. We had some DXdao rejects hanging out outside Rave before moving on to other and greater things that evening. So it was a super good time at the end of the day. I think of the parties, of course, I mostly only attended Divinity and focused on kind of the day-to-day things. But it was also interesting seeing the Cirque de Ponce by 1inch having a very unique take on kind of parties and having a unique venue, be it kind of circus themed. Divinity was underground in Paris. I think there was like a CNBC article on crypto developers escape underground amid Paris heatwave. Was a cool title to kind of see and be a part of. And of course, that first photo with the fans, that is in Divinity, the underground area. And then last but not least, DX Voice. We had our own dinner. We had a unique opportunity to get together. We had some pizza, of course. Can't go wrong with pizza. On the agenda, we chatted infinite, management, future of DX Voice. But I think the most important takeaway, kind of more broadly here, is kind of recognizing the improvements that the squad has made. A bit of a heartfelt moment, including the squad's evolution from basically a one-man show to a kind of thriving squad of 3 full-time and assistants from even more. So super excited and happy to be where we are. Very thankful to the team and the opportunity to meet with them in person. And I think my conclusion kind of wraps up my thoughts of the week pretty well, which I will just quote here. The ETHCC Blockchain Week was yet another fantastic opportunity to connect with cryptopians and share knowledge about the space. It represented our most successful marketing efforts to date through desirable swag and important connections. And finally, perhaps most important of all, DXdao got once again the rare opportunity to sync up and collaborate with one another in person. Meeting new faces and conversing with familiar ones is not only special, but incredibly productive. So I will leave it at that. I'm not sure if anyone has any comments, questions about my thread or ETHCC Blockchain Week. I know we're kind of over time here. I want to give a little bit of time to talk about this budget, or at least call attention to it for the recording, and then we can wrap things up. Cool. No thoughts. I do see lots of emojis, reactions to the various photos, so happy to see that. Just catching up here in the chats on kind of budget discussion. I think Spicy Soup said, how many DXdao contributors are we expecting to attend and how much have we budgeted for? I kind of said where I said it. Good question. I think there's been discussion on events and the budget associated with the tail end of the year. Not sure I have a resource handy to point to. And then we had John kind of pointing to the DX Columbia contributor stipend. And we have Spicy Soup talking about Treasury offering stipends for any and all, deciding how many are needed, properly presented, footing the bill for only those. We're in a bear and decided we need to extend runway should that not involve being responsible with travel and stipends. I think just as a quick interjection, opinion-wise, I think that's why kind of this budget discussion has been happening and the importance of, being aware of how much we're spending and conscious of our runway and not exceeding budgets like this. And my interpretation is that was met, but I kind of defer to those that have been more focused on budget to explain that. I do believe and see Chris has kind of shared some half to 2022 and some monetary estimates of the Columbia experience here. So I'm not sure if you two want to step up and say anything here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just to preface the, I think this is important not just for DXdao, but I think crypto at large. These types of events are really, really unique. It kind of is a different culture in crypto that is entirely online, that has these in-person events, and I think that's like doubly true for DXdao. We work all online, all around the world. No one pays, DXdao doesn't pay any rent for any, kind of business or anything. And it's really these get-togethers that are when we have the time to form bond relationships, but also as Guy was saying, work on things for a couple of days that are oh, we should be doing this for the next kind of 6 months. So I think the importance of these are really due. Having said that, absolutely, thinking about the budget is incredibly important, and that's why I think estimating these, talking about them in the open here, I think is really important. And so the process for that is, we have this contributor stipend for any event. This is what Melanie I believe Melanie has always posted this, and this comes to the contributor X team, and this is an estimate of the cost for people to attend these events. And we also, they decide maybe what events that are going to be given a stipend for, and then they'll provide, like, any contributor can claim that stipend if they want to go to that event. There is some differences for contributors coming from different parts of the world, or if you're going just within Europe, your travel stipend is different. But that's kind of that's what contributors use. And I do think it's important that this is something that we have at the, given our current size, and I'm not saying this may be an infinite, but I do think it's important that we offer this to all contributors at the moment, because it really is like a culture building element, both again for DXdao, but also crypto at large. Like, people that are just kind of getting started that really, really need to be in these environments for like short amount of time, and they're really, really huge value adds. And then, like, just in the numbers that I put in the chat there, and like the 200K, like, just off of the bat, right? Think about like 50K of that is for this like hackathon that we're doing. And so that's like a brand new thing that has a bunch of other, I think, ROIs associated to it, as opposed to just the event. And also the merch estimate here is a little bit, I'm not actually sure how much, if this was based on all merch for this or specifically the Infinite hackathon, but like that is also a part of it. And then the DX retreat, right? This is something we've done once a year. We did it a year ago. This is not something that, it's just like any event there. And then, I think the stipends you can see here, it says 127. I think it's probably about 100. And I think for the one that Melanie posted, it was like basically 4,000, I think. And so you can see it's maybe 20 contributors kind of coming in that we expect to come to Colombia. Actually, a good portion of this has already been paid. So in terms of like the upcoming budget, I think like probably 50% of the stipends have already been claimed. But I think sending 20 contributors to Colombia for like $100,000 is actually a very, very like good deal in terms of other. If you look at the expenses for other kind of companies, it's much, much, much higher than that when people travel, because they're staying in all of these different areas. They have, and so I think we actually have a pretty lean way of doing this. And also, like, again, it's a lean way of operating, because over this 2-week period, we get to make big jumps in, like, I think productivity, in culture, and hopefully, like, kind of talking about the DXD token, like we can make like a big breakthrough through there. So I think this is a really important conversation to have, and I'm really glad that we're having it on this call, but also like out in the open. This is what, having on-chain, everything go on-chain and have to talk about it is like, you don't get to see the event stipends for all the other groups out there. You don't get to see like what they're kind of spending in order to make that. And so, anyway, that's thoughts on that. Others?
Yeah. Valid points from Chris. Maybe I'll repeat most of those, but to help a spicy soup with not getting a heart attack, it's not the usual expenditure you get associated with attending the conference, because as Chris said, it will take a longer time. It's the annual retreat, which is really a team building event that has a lot of intense conversations between members of the DAO trying to improve their work. It happens to coincide with an event that is quite remote. It coincides with us organizing our very first hackathon. So all of these together come up to a significant amount, but it's not the usual expense we have. Not all contributors attend conferences. It's a smaller amount of participants each time. Those take place within locations that are close to us, whether it's the US or Europe, so travel expenditure isn't that much, and the duration is much shorter, so the average conference expenditure is much, much lower than what we have for this kind of like special event once a year.
Cool. And then we have comment from Spicy again here. His concern is less about the cost, but rather than run rate concerns are front of mind when it comes to buybacks, supporting DXD holders, and not a given equal concern for other areas where contributors are affected. Fragility for the, not for me. Want to confirm that won't be the case. Not sure if anyone has comments, thoughts to respond to that there. Just reading it out here for the sake of the recording.
Well, it does read better because he's rhyming. I think it's a valid point. And I think these are things we need to be considering. I think these are things that are worth spending. There are ways we could cut back on other things. But yeah, I think it's an important discussion. And I think this is why, talking into NAV, and you can see how all of these elements come together. And also it's cool, right? There's money being spent on this event, and it has to go through an on-chain proposal, and we have to talk about these things. And spicy soup, this individual gets to ask questions about that, and people have to talk about why those things are important. So I don't know, this is cool, and all part of what makes DXdao special.
Cool. Well, excellent. I do believe we are roughly 25% above time here, nearing on 15 minutes over. Apologies to those held up. Thank you very much, everyone, for your attendance. It's greatly appreciated. I see Luigi just at the end here saying, what is DXdao working on? Anything to announce? If that were the case, maybe it would not be said here. You dirty bugger, Luigi. Cool. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for attending. Absolutely fantastic call, I must say. Ran very smoothly. Lots of great talks, discussions. Thank you very much for attending. We will see you next week. And the last thing to consider here is the reason, I think I might have mentioned this at the beginning, but the reason we're doing Double Discord is looking for that inaugural episode of Operation Decentralization, DXdao's podcast. Hopefully, if I can confirm those dates by today, you should have a little more info on it in the announcement channel tomorrow and some more context from our partner. But more on that hopefully coming very soon. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and we will see you next week. Thank you and ciao.
Ciao.